Alright, so with that nice overview about different kinds of ocular allergies and different subtypes that we have, I'll move on to mimickers of ocular allergy. Because as we know, allergic conjunctivitis can be often overdiagnosed because there are a variety of conditions that can present to us with congestion, chemosis and watering. So here one dictum to remember is that predominant symptom of ocular allergy is itching. Usually if there is no itching, it's unlikely to be a case of ocular allergy. So if we have to divide mimickers of ocular allergy into different subgroups, we have the conjunctivitis group, which could be more commonly viral or bacterial. It could also be toxic conjunctivitis, and especially because we are talking about young children, it could be a case of flictennular conjunctivitis. Then we have the dry eye subgroup of disorders, which would include phlebitis, blepharitis, which would cause evaporative dry eye, as well as cases of aqueous deficiency dry eye. And the other differential diagnosis could be episcleritis or ocular cicatricial pemphigoid, which is a differential diagnosis for atopic keratoconjunctivitis, as both can have significant amount of fibrosis and scarring. So let's talk about viral conjunctivitis. So this is what a typical patient of viral conjunctivitis would look like. A predominant symptom here would be mainly irritation and foreign body sensation more than itching, and an important sign would be that they would have stickiness of the eyes in the morning if we specifically ask that question, and there might be associated lid edema. And unlike allergic conjunctivitis, which involves usually both the eyes simultaneously, viral conjunctivitis first involves one eye and then spreads to the other. If we examine the lower fornix, there might be serous discharge in the lower fornix along with follicular reaction much more than the papillary reaction, which is typically seen in cases of allergic conjunctivitis. Now, usually viral conjunctivitis does not present with blurriness of vision or any visual symptoms, but there can be these subepithelial infiltrates, which is an antigen-antibody reaction, which could cause glare or blurred vision in these patients as well. If we are confused about what differential it is, whether it is SPKs or whether it is case of allergy causing these reactions, we could also palpate for preauricular lymph node involvement, and these patients might have associated viral upper respiratory tract infection as well as fever. Now, bacterial conjunctivitis we are less likely to confuse with ocular allergies because usually they would have a significant amount of purulent discharge, and there might be presence of membranes as well, and the patients will complain of intense stickiness of the lids in the morning. Another important differential to remember is cases of toxic conjunctivitis. So we always have to ask for the history of usage of any eye drops, because especially anti-glaucoma medications or preservatives that the patient is using, or if he is using any off-label drops, plant extracts, all of them can lead to toxicity to the ocular surface. Now here the congestion and all the signs and symptoms are more in the lower tarsal conjunctiva, unlike allergy where there is more involvement of upper tarsal conjunctiva. And they could have associated inferior SPKs and corneal edema. Now if we have a young patient who presents to us with a picture like this, this could be a case of flictennular keratoconjunctivitis. Now to differentiate, like this is a young 8-year-old boy who presented with a picture like this. These cases are usually unilateral and unlikely to be bilateral, again unlike ocular allergy. And another important way to differentiate them is to stain, and usually if there is a case of flicten, it will be an appearance of an ulcerated nodule, whereas limbal papillae won't have this kind of a staining. They might take a diffuse staining if their patient has limbal papillae. So this is one way to differentiate between these two. Now let's talk about phlebitis and blepharitis, which are very commonly misdiagnosed as allergic conjunctivitis. These patients usually have more of irritation and burning sensation, or they might even complain of watering rather than itching. So it is extremely important to look at the eyelashes, look for deposits on the base of the eyelashes, and look at the meibomian glands before we label a case with ocular allergy. Sometimes we might have patients like this who actually have marginal keratitis, and this can be very confusing and might look like a limbal papillae to us. So here, even the position of where we get these infiltrates could be where the lid margin touches the cornea, and again associated signs and symptoms like these patients can have inferior SPKs, or looking at infrared topography will help us And again, marginal keratitis is more likely to be unilateral, although there can be bilateral presentations as well. As we know, phlebitis and blepharitis again are disorders which are bilateral in nature. Now, very rarely we can have cases like this. This is a case of a 4-year-old boy who was being treated as allergic conjunctivitis for a long time. There's been a lot of talk about Demodex in the last couple of years, but we also have to remember that pediculosis can also lead to blepharitis, and this is another cause wherein the patient would have similar symptoms to allergic conjunctivitis. So this patient actually had pediculosis, and we removed all of these lice on the eyelashes, and that's how he got relieved of his symptoms. Now, aqueous deficiency dry eye can also look or get confused with ocular allergies, because long-standing ocular allergies in turn can cause dryness in the eye. Now, these patients are usually in older age group, and they can present to us again with symptoms of drippiness and dryness and associated intermittent blurring of vision, because they will have these kind of superficial punctate keratitis. Now, we must ask for a history of underlying autoimmune disease when we say a case like this, and that would again point us to the right diagnosis. Again, the presentation in terms of the distribution of SPKs would give us a clue. They would be more impalpable rather than superior in BKC, and there might be associated filaments. Another case of dry eye subgroup disorder, which can be confused with ocular allergy, superior limbic keratoconjunctivitis, and here the major pathogenic mechanism is the redundancy and the thickening of the superior bulbar conjunctiva, which leads to inflammation and papillary reaction. So again, there can be associated filaments, and we need to ask the history of underlying thyroid abnormalities, and that would help us differentiate these two. And again, this would be present more in older age group rather than the younger age group. Now, these are a few, these can also be kept in mind. A floppy eyelid syndrome is where the tarsus is very, very lax, and this is typically seen in male obese patients. So here what happens is that this tarsus gets everted when they are sleeping, and typically the signs and symptoms will correlate to the side on which they sleep. So not just to examine the lids, but to also look at the tone of the tarsus is important when we are evaluating these cases. Although these patients are rare, but it's something that we need to keep in mind. Then we have the episcleritis, which does not cause any itching or any significant pain or discharge. It presents as a painless congestion, and there will be no papillary reaction or no follicles. Ocular cicatricial pemphigoid can be confused with AKC. The question that we need to ask is that it will not be associated with atopic dermatitis, although there can be skin involvement in patients with OCT, and these patients usually have severe dry eye. It is a progressive bilateral disease in most patients, and when we examine, we will see signs of scarring, corneal foreshortening, symplepharon, as well as ocular surface cicatrization. So, to narrow down the differential diagnosis, we first, according to the symptoms. So, if the patient primarily complains of itching, we are probably looking at a case of ocular allergy. If the predominant symptom is burning and ocular irritation, we are probably looking at dry eyes. And the main symptom, if it's discharge or stickiness of lids in the morning, it could be a case of viral conjunctivitis. So, to put it all in a nutshell, if there is no itching and redness, we should consider alternate diagnosis. Look at the lid margins and see whether the patient is suffering from uveitis or blepharitis. Another question to ask is whether the patient has skin manifestations. It could be a case of AKC, or sometimes even patients with perennial allergic conjunctivitis can have associated skin manifestations. Does the patient have rhinitis, asthma? That would again strengthen our diagnosis of ocular allergy. A GPC could be another differential diagnosis for ocular allergy, so asking for contact lens usage is also important. And patients with severe seasonal itching, with Robi discharge, with cobblestone appearance, with this diffuse pigmentation that Dr. Alok Sati demonstrated very beautifully, are patients of VKC. And last but not least, it could be a case of irritative conjunctivitis, especially people who come from polluted areas. Thank you for your patience.
That we have also seen, especially the days that I'm practicing now, first attention that they're seeking or the second doctor that they're seeing. So it seems that Demodex blepharitis is vastly underdiagnosed. And before we label as allergy, so for allergy and allergy, itching, eye
Right.
so in the Demodex class 3, they won't have continuous itching. So you see that pediatric patient, so examine the lips and lashes very closely. And even the same that you said of pediculosis, because of the lower social problem that I'm dealing with, even the slum population and so on. So this also has, I've noticed that it's a little bit on the upswing. So these common problems we should look at first, because it's not, you can get a one-time solution for these problems as opposed to allergy, which can keep happening year on year. So thanks for bringing all of these points up.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Or questions from the audience here. So I'm very happy that we have a small group in the audience, but obviously they're a very motivated group to be attending this session. So it's kind of like a one-on-one discussion, and anybody is free to ask any questions that they might have here.
I think the most common mimicker, like Dr. Somshila was rightly pointing out, is phlebitis and blepharitis. Patients who have evaporative dry eye related to lid margin disease, those I feel are very commonly misdiagnosed as ocular allergy, because it tends to become the default diagnosis for a patient who has diffuse redness irritation. Like we can't highlight enough the importance of examining the lid margin, as well as looking at the eyelashes, looking at the hygiene of the lid margin. So those become very, very important before we label a patient as allergic conjunctivitis. So thank you so much. I would like to invite Dr. Somshila for her talk on complications of ocular allergy, as